So today we're going to be talking about fluency, and I just want to start off with a question. What would happen if we all read the pledge at a different speed? So Danielle starts at one time, and then Hannah starts at another time, and they read at different speeds, and then everybody else started after them. That would be mass chaos. That would literally be insane. And what's the purpose of the pledge? It's to unify us. It's to bring us all together as we say our pledge to our country. So if we all said it and read it at different speeds, that would defeat the purpose. That's why fluency is important. Fluency helps us know how to read with everybody else. It helps us know how to speak with everybody else. And that starts in the classroom. So today we're going to be going over what fluency is, the importance in the classroom, the importance in life, and then different strategies to help with fluency. We have reader's theater, fluency testing, choral reading, and sustained silent reading.
So the main idea of the chapter is reading fluency. The key points are basically there are three dimensions of fluency. There's accurate word decoding, automaticity, and prosody. And the goal of fluency is to preserve mental energy so that comprehension can take place. This is important because it builds on their comprehension, so it's not just about how fast they're reading, what they're reading, it's about what they comprehend. And a quote from the textbook, fluency is the bridge between word recognition and comprehension. So that just shows how important that fluency is. And so we're gonna talk about a few strategies today. It's gonna be reader's theater, fluency testing, choral reading, and sustained silent reading, and how they promote fluency. Reader's theater is about what the audience hears rather than what they see. So they are performing, but it's also about how they're saying it, what they're expressing. And then fluency testing, it emphasizes decoding words and comprehending them at the same time. So that also builds on their fluency. Choral reading, students consider ways to show the author's meaning in text by using cues like pitch, loudness, stress, and sounds, and pauses. And then sustained reading fluency through reading experiences. So the more that students read, the more proficient they'll become in reading. So just reading silently often.
So the transliteracy connection that we made, the importance of this is to be a scaffolding and not a hindrance to the reading process. So a good website that I found was called Epic, and it's super cool. You can either have the students type in a code like Top Hat and they can all read the text together at the same time, or they can just go in and have a library full of different books on their reading level. So this is actually the teacher view, and you can set it for the specific AR level to the students specifically. So it only shows books in their reading levels. And then on to the next one, when you click onto the book or if they type in the code, this is what the front of the book looks like. So it shows you the cover, it gives you the illustrator and the author, and then it gives you a brief description of what the book is about. It also shows you the age range, the length it should take about for them to read, and then the reading level. And then while they're reading it, they have the option for someone to read it aloud to them, or they can turn the sound off and they can read it independently and they can flip through pages online. And if, say, they come to the word noisy and they're not sure what that either sounds like or they don't know what that means, they can click on it and hear what it sounds like. It gives them some adjectives or the description of what the word means.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about reader's theater today. And the textbook defines reader's theater as the oral presentation of drama, prose, or poetry by two or more readers. So basically the students are putting on a performance based off of what they've been reading and practicing reading so that it will be fluent and they can read it with expression. This could be through poetry, it could be a script, nonfiction, fiction books, whatever the teacher wants them to read. And also reading fluency is typically defined through its three constituents: word recognition, accuracy, automaticity, and reading prosody, which we talked about earlier. This is shown through reader's theater because they're reading with expression, and it's also how quick they can read it as well. So it's basic sight words teachers will often put in there, and just words that they can read all quickly. And also, reader's theater possesses several elements that not only increase reading fluency, but also other often neglected and unassessed individual differences in reading, such as motivation, confidence, and reading self-efficiency. And so this is important because it's not only about what they're reading, but their confidence. So they're performing for their peers and their teachers. So it's building their confidence in reading as they're in front of people speaking. And then also research. So there was a study done where they took about 70 students and they split them in half, and one half did Reader's Theater for about 2 months. Each week they would do a different Reader's Theater. And then the other half, they wouldn't do any Reader's Theater and they didn't participate in that. And the research concluded that some of the students demonstrated up to 2 years of reading growth, and others who were previously at risk were reading on grade level by the end of the year. And so this just shows how great Reader's Theater is for students and how much they improve by participating in that. And then as a result of engaging in Reader's Theater, students read with more appropriate expression, confidence, and enthusiasm. Goodman found that students who read with appropriate expression were more likely to have a higher comprehension. So this just shows how much it builds their comprehension, which is super important because that's one of the main goals of reading. And then also there's different ways to do Reader's Theater. It could be like this one at the last quote. The teachers, instead of having the students read each script, the teacher read it to the students instead, and they would do it throughout the week for like a whole week. They would do each little section of it. And so there's different ways to do it. It's not just having students read off of a script. And the teacher said that participated in it said, "We think the engagement factor and the increased focus on comprehension and word study make this approach to Reader's Theater a viable option for teachers." And then the book gives 11 guidelines when using Reader's Theater. So the first one is introduce the piece and have students read through it once. Direct students to look for places where they can add it. So this is adding feeling or emotion. So students really get to make it their own, which they enjoy. And ask students to model suggestions. So basic feedback as to what they think the script should be. Practice the piece together. Read the entire piece. Stop the process when necessary. Assign parts to the students, which is usually their favorite part of the whole thing, is getting to act as a character. Practice and then perform. So they could put on a whole performance. You could do props. You could even have them go outside and practice it to change the setting up for them. And then self-assess and confirm their comments.
So core reading, as defined as our textbook, is reading aloud in unison with a whole class or group of students. Core reading is an enjoyable way to engage all the students in your class and also gets them on the same page at the same time. So reading text repetitively increases vocabulary knowledge, decoding, greater comprehension of the text, and it also helps with the competency of the reading and also with the collaboration of all the students because you all are reading it all together, so it helps lower skilled readers be more confident in their reading skills when they are next to students that might be on a higher scale. So, and then the research that I did, I chose from 3 separate groups of students. So I chose from elementary classroom, and I chose from an inclusive classroom, and then from a middle school classroom, just to kind of get different views on it to see if it was across the board about the same. So the inclusive classroom helped the students be more confident in their reading skills and also allowed the students to have a more individual basis. So the teacher walked around the classroom and helped the students kind of pronounce a little bit better. For the elementary school, it helped with the sight reading words and for the self-confidence and the vocabulary knowledge all together. And then for the adolescent group, they tend to not be as interested in literature, so having them all stand up and read together kind of got them engaged, and the teacher got to choose different genres of books and literature to get them more fluent in their reading and more engaged rather than just sitting at their desk and kind of zoning out in what they were doing. And how to use choral reading, there's different ways you can do it, but the most important is to choose the book that you want to read aloud to your class. You kind of want to choose a text that's somewhere in the middle, since you do have very skilled readers in your classroom. So kind of that middle ground. you can provide either your students with a physical copy of the text, or you can present it in a way like this presentation where everyone can see it at the same time. If they do have a physical copy, you want them to follow along so they can be engaged, so either have them mark on the page or follow along with their finger in some way. You want to reread the passage a couple times, probably more slowly to pronounce the words correctly and to get the pronunciation aspect in there as well. Some general tips is to keep the passage short. You don't want to read a chapter book altogether as a class, that would take forever. To keep it simple, choose materials that are on grade level so that you go around somewhere. And to select a story or poem that allows the words to come alive. So the main aspect of choral reading is the expression of the text. So either a poem that has that fluency aspect or that rhythm kind of gets the students more engaged than just a regular text, maybe about history.
So sustained silent reading, also known as SSR, focuses on developing students' fluency and their stamina in reading. With a particular emphasis on having students self-select their reading materials, choose their own book, to help them maintain and cultivate their interest in reading. We want them to have their own intrinsic motivation for pursuing the reader rather than just reading because the teacher told them to. So SSR has two primary purposes. The first is to provide reading practice time for improving reading fluency through practice. And the second is to provide reading practice time to improve reading stamina, being able to read for longer periods of time continuously and maintaining focus. So students are encouraged to, like I said, self-select their own books within their reading range. So the ones that are appropriate for their level of reading. We don't want them reading super hard books if they can't understand any of it, or reading like a kindergartner book if they're in 5th grade. That won't help them at all. So building stamina in reading is much easier when the student has an internal motivation to read the book, because it helps them pursue it. Even if it's challenging, they want to find out what is going to happen next. And that can help them push through that difficulty when they're reading. It's been a long time, but they really want to find out what happens next, so they keep reading. In the same way with fluency, if they don't know a word, if they're not sure what's happening, if they want to really find out what's going on and understand it, then they're more likely to go and either ask a teacher for help or ask a peer or look for a dictionary. So on the research, they found that parental involvement had a very significant impact on how much students valued reading, as well as their motivation to read. This impacted in their conclusion in that nearly 9 in 10 students in the group that value reading highly claimed to be self-motivated during the SSR time, as opposed to only 7 in 10 students who were in the low-value reading group. So there's a big difference in how much they were motivated if they valued reading more. So critics have claimed that the National Reading Manual reported that SSR was ineffective. However, according to Garin and de Gavoud, this was not the case. They looked at the research that the NRP did, and as well as additional research, and found that it was still useful. So variation on SSR allows for more monitoring and accountability. So just the straight SSR would have the teacher sit back and model, whereas variations will have them interact with the classroom, monitor them. Scaffolding silent reading is where the teacher will kind of conference with the students, ask them about their reading, monitor them. What's your story about? What are you reading about in this chapter, etc. Keeping them more involved. The students are more likely to stay engaged because they know the teacher might come talk to them. So I found that examining SSR program over an entire year, I found that there's a noticeable increase in reported percentage of students who actually read during SSR time instead of being distracted. They actually did their reading and focused on that. And there's also a noticeable increase in those who found pleasure in reading. So how to use it, the teacher will provide a selection of books, divided up by grade level. Flip to the next scene real quick. So this at the top, the picture is like a student or a teacher has selected books and put them alphabetically by the difficulty of reading. So closer to Z, the harder the book is, closer to A, the easier the book is. And so students know where to go to pick out their books. So when they pick out their book, they self-select, they have a greater appreciation for that. Sometimes they need a little encouragement from the teacher to actually pick a book. I'll talk a little bit more about that in Workstation. SSR programs are meant to employ daily reading time, generally around 15 to 20 minutes, although sometimes longer. And the idea is that this provides daily reading practice for the student to focus solely on reading without external distractions going on. Variations, like I mentioned before, have more or less active monitoring, and, okay, and go to the pictures real quick. You can see like some of the kids having fun laying down and reading. You don't have to just sit at your desk and read it. You can sit in a comfortable area. And then also the bottom right shows a student who's trying to be sneaky and pretending to read, but is actually reading, paying attention to their phone. So it's something to keep in mind as a teacher. You have to watch out for students who are trying to cheat.
All right, so these are all super great ways to help with fluency and help your students improve as readers, but you have to know where they're at. So assessing their fluency level is vital to their success. There are two different things that you can assess when assessing fluency. You can assess their oral fluency, which is like choral reading or reader's theater, and then you can assess their silent fluency, which is what they would use during SSR time. So, what you want to know about this is the rate that one reads out loud is sometimes half, or is sometimes double the speed at which they can read when they're reading silently. So when I read silently, I can read twice as fast as when I speak. That's what I'm saying. So testing their silent fluency is super important because they might take 5 minutes to read a paragraph out loud, but it might take them 30 seconds to read it when they're reading silently. The assessment strategy that's really helpful with this is you take a 600 syllable paragraph and you have the students read it. The students read it silently, and in the paragraph are instructional phrases like put a sticker at the bottom or put the gold star in the right hand corner. And as they're going along, it's super easy. They know what to do. They recognize the words, and they're just following instructions. And you time how long it takes them to follow those instructions. And then next week, you give them another assessment just like that one, and the goal is for their time to be a little bit shorter. And as it gets shorter, you can assess that their fluency is improving because they're understanding what they're reading at a faster pace. Why is fluency important? Well, we read and will be required to read for the rest of our lives. You don't leave college and stop reading. You have to read for jobs. You have to read to your kids. There's so many things that we need to read with. And then the majority of reading is done in silence. So when I get to college, I don't sit in the back of the classroom while Dr. Bose is talking and read aloud what she's reading, right? I have to read it silently to myself or else I'd get in trouble. So we have to emphasize silent reading to our students or else they're not going to be successful. And then a student's oral fluency level actually levels out around high school, but in college it can double. So your fluency level is still improving right now if you're practicing reading. And so don't feel like just because you aren't talking any faster means you can't read any faster. That's not true at all. And lastly, standardized tests use silent fluency. Your students can't sit and read out loud and try to comprehend what the test is asking them to do. They get kicked out. So we have to teach them how to read efficiently and understand what they're reading. Tips when testing fluency: use text and words that they're familiar with. Don't throw in 8 new vocabulary words when you're trying to test their fluency. They're going to fail their fluency test, or their time will be longer. Use shorter sentences because this levels the playing field for all students. Studies show that ESL students can read fluently like everybody else, but the longer the sentence, the slower it's going to take, or the longer it's going to take them. Fluency can be tested out loud or silently based upon what you're trying to assess. It's not bad to assess oral fluency, but test their silent fluency as well. And then silent fluency can be tested while using comprehension questions. Comprehension and fluency do go hand in hand, but make sure that they're not divergent questions where the students have to really think about what you're asking, make sure it's obvious in the text, and then you can get a grasp on what their fluency is.
So to conclude, while things like word identification strategies that we learned about last week are very important, phonics, using context in reading, if the student lacks fluency, then they're not going to be able to use that to its greatest extent because they'll spend so much time doing that. So you need fluency to be able to read through things. But it's not just speed. Reading fluency is not just about reading fast, it's also about reading well. And thus comprehending what is read. According to Vaca, our textbook, the goal of fluency is about preserving mental energy so that comprehension can take place. Fluency can be improved through instructional practices like we talked about reader's theater, choral reading, sustained silent reading. And the theme of these and other strategies is practice. Practice, practice, practice. Practice, particularly with reading level appropriate text discovered through fluency checks and assessments, is what helps students become fluent and confident readers, consumers of literacy. Okay, so we're going to break out into our workstations. just gonna click to the next scene and we'll have there's a list of references real quick. And here's our groups, station 4, 3, 2, and 1. So if you wanna find your name and break out to your workstations, we'll meet you there.